How to craft IPCR commitment.
Welcome to the Learning and Development Channel, where you can learn, lead, and make a difference.
How to craft IPCR commitment. The part 1, or the individual performance of the IPCR commitment form, is being accomplished at the beginning of the RPMS cycle, which is the performance planning and commitment. For non-school based, it is being crafted from December to January, while for school based, it is being crafted 1 month prior the opening of classes. Let us now proceed on the step-by-steps on how to craft the IPCR commitment. Step 1. Fill out the personal information on the top section of the IPCR form. For example, under the name of employee and rater, it is to be filled out in following format: first name, middle initial, and surname. Name extension, if any. Space is allotted for each character or letter in the name. Next is position. The position of the employee in rater is to be filled out also in the sentence case format. For example, the position of the RET named Juan de la Cruz is Administrative Officer 2, and the position of the rater, Miss Christine Reyes, is Chief Administrative Officer. In cases that the rater is not available, the next higher official shall be the rater of the RET. For example, the if there is no chief administrative officer under a certain office, then the immediate rater of Mr. Juan de la Cruz is the director, which is the highest official or officer of the chief administrative officer. Next, division. The division is to be filled out also in the sentence case format. For example, Baguio Teachers Camp. And lastly, date of review. Date of review is to be filled out in the numeric format. For example, January 10, 2024, or the plan year. So for part 1, column A to H shall be filled only during phase 1 or performance planning and commitment of the RPMS cycle. Let us now begin on the step 2. This is the first column or column A under phase 1 or the planning commitment. Determine the major final outputs that the individual is directly contributing to based on the DepEd organizational outcomes. For example, the identified MFO of Mr. Juan de la Cruz is governance enabling mechanisms. So let us dwell further into what is the major final outputs. The major final outputs is based on the DepEd's performance management frameworks with multiple organizational outcomes. These are the following. The first illustration here, the org outcome is the GAA FY 2024 programs or sub-programs with 5 pillars. The first one is Education Policy Development Program, Basic Education Inputs Program, Inclusive Education Program, Support to School and Learners Program, and Education Human Resource Development Program. Another organizational outcome framework is the BEDP Goal and Outcomes. It is based on the TO 24 and 29 series of 2022 with 4 pillars such as access, equity, equality, resiliency, and well-being, And lastly, the enabling mechanisms or governance, which is mostly applicable to the non-school-based personnel. And last, org outcome framework is the Matatag agenda. MA stands for Make the Curriculum Relevant to Produce Competent and Job-Ready, Active and Responsible Citizens. First, TA stands for Take Steps to Accelerate Delivery of Basic Education Facilities and Services. Second, TA, Take Good Care of Learners by promoting learner well-being, inclusive education, and a positive learning environment. And lastly, G stands for Give Support to Teachers to Teach Better. As I mentioned a while ago, the the sample under MFO, the identified MFO of Mr. De La Cruz is the enabling mechanisms. Considering that he falls under the non-school based personnel. Step 3, identify the key result areas or KRAs. The KRA is based on the official issuance on the Compendium of Office Functions issued through Memorandum DM-HROD-2023-0611, which can be accessed through this link, https://bit.ly office functions v3, and the overall organizational outcomes of the agency. For CORO and SDO refers to Office Functions version 3. For schools and elementary and school levels, refer to the prescribed KRAs that are aligned with the SPM domains. For example, Mr. De La Cruz referred to the office functions where he is assigned to. In his case, he is assigned under Baguio Teachers Camp. So the key result areas under the office functions version 3 are as follows. Client relations and services management. Second is financial management. Third, administrative service management. And lastly, is the office administration and performance management. It is important to note that all office KRAs is not required to reflect in the IPCR commitment form. Remember that the identified KRAs shall be based on the job description of the individual. Next step, set the objectives. Based on the set MFO and KRAs, the rater and the RIKI shall discuss and agree on the office objectives or individual objectives. Setting at least 3 objectives per KRA is highly recommended. However, the rater and the ratee may set more than 3 objectives per KRA depending on the priorities of the office for the specific performance year. For example, the 3 identified objectives under KRA 1, Client Relations and Services Management, are as follows. Receive and responded to all reservation queries of all potential guests. The second objective under KRA 1 is updated, check, and maintain 100% of the facility reservation system. And the third objective under KRA 1 is prepared and provided quotations requested by clients. The next step after setting the 3 objectives for each identified KRA is to set the timeline. For example, The timeline agreed between the ratee and the rater for these three objectives under KRA1, which is uh, the regular function of Mr. De La Cruz. The timeline for this is January to December 31, 2024. There are the timeline may vary according to the set objectives. Let's say there is for regular functions, the suggested timeline is for the whole performance period, while for a certain project or program being initiated by the REIT depends on the deadline or the set timeline between the REIT and the reader. So let us proceed on the next step. Next step is assigning the weight. The assignment of weights shall be done per objective based on the scope of work, difficulty, and complexity of accomplishing the specific task and the required time to finish the specific task and achieve the objective. For example, the agreed weight allocation for three objectives under CARE A1, Client Relation Services Management, is for the first objective, the agreed weight is 15%, while 15% for the second objective, and the third objective has 10%. It's important to note that the overall weight allocation per KRA and objective should not exceed 100% under part 1. So after assigning the weight per KRA, the next step is to identify the performance targets and measures. The reader and REITI shall identify, discuss, and agree on the performance targets for each of the objectives. Performance targets are the expected outputs based on the KRAs and objectives that are met. Using a 5-point rating scale, the rater and the ratee determine the performance indicators for quality, efficiency, and timeliness as measures of the performance and means to verify the achievement of the output or deliverable. Depending on the objective, performance may be rated in terms of at least two measures, quality, efficiency, and timeliness, provided that quality is always being measured. For example, of the setting the performance targets under indicator QET is as follows. Under the first KRA and first objective of Mr. De La Cruz, his performance targets and measures under indicator quality are 5. Responded to all receive reservation queries. 4. Responded 85 to 99% receive reservation queries. 3. Receive Responded 70 to 84% receive reservation queries. 2. Responded to 55 to 69. And 1. Responded at least 54% receive reservation queries. While the performance indicators under efficiency are as follows. Mr. De La Cruz will be rated 5 if there is no follow-up queries through calls, emails, or on any other forms of correspondence. As Mr. De La Cruz will also be rated 4 if there are 1 to 3 pending queries. 3, 4 to 6 pending queries, 2, 6 to 9 pending queries, and 1, more than 10 pending queries through calls, emails, or any other forms of correspondences. Under the timeliness, the indicators are as follows. Mr. De La Cruz will be rated 5 if he will be able to immediately address the queries received during the call, text messages, emails, or any other forms of correspondences. 4 for 15 minutes to 8 hours after call, text message, emails, or any other forms of correspondences. 3 a day after. 2 to 4 days after. And 1 more than 5 days after messages, email, call, text, emails, or any other forms of correspondences. Okay. So step 8 is the rater and ratee shall reach an agreement. Step 9, upon reaching an agreement, the rater and ratee shall sign the IPCR commitment form. For example, once all the indicators, the objectives, or the timeline and all other informations needed under column A to column H, this will be agreed by the rater and ratee and should be signed by the ratee, the rater, and the approving authority at the bottom section of the part 1. The rating scale is also here beside the signature, the name and the signature column of the rating rater and approving authority. So the last step is to submit the signed IPCR commitment to the personal division or unit. Let us all contribute in achieving the DEPIT's organizational outcomes through elevating organizational performance. To know more about the performance management, you may scan the QR code provided in the screen or access the link of the DEPIT RPMS library. For more information, contact phrdd@deped.gov.ph email address. Again, thank you for listening.
Like and subscribe to the L&D channel on YouTube using the link youtube.com/@learn2lead channel.